You didn't ruin it because you're broken. You ruined it because it was working. That's the part nobody talks about. Not the relationships you let fall apart when they were already falling. Not the opportunities you walked away from when you were already half gone. Those feel bad, but they make a kind of sense. What doesn't make sense, what stays with you years later in a way you can't fully explain, is the other kind. The moment things were genuinely, quietly, completely working, and something inside you reached for the exit anyway. Think about a specific time, not a vague, general feeling, a specific moment. The relationship that was actually different from the ones before it. The one where you weren't performing, weren't waiting for the other shoe to drop, weren't managing the distance with careful precision. It just worked. Until it didn't. Until you started a fight that didn't need starting. Until you said something that landed wrong on purpose. Until you pulled back so gradually that by the time anyone noticed, including you, the distance had already done its work and the thing was already over in every way except officially. Or the job, the project, the friendship that was becoming something real and specific and yours. You'd been waiting for exactly this kind of thing. And then, at some point after it started working, you began showing up differently. Smaller efforts, slower replies, a quiet unavailability that you dressed up as being busy, as needing space, as just going through something right now. And the window closed, and you let it close. And somewhere underneath the disappointment, underneath the story you told yourself about why it didn't work out, was a feeling you didn't want to look at directly. You've done this more than once. You know you have. And the worst part isn't that it happened. The worst part is that some part of you watched it happening in real time and couldn't stop it. Like observing yourself from a slight distance, knowing exactly what you were doing and doing it anyway. The question isn't whether the pattern exists. You already know it does. The question is what it actually is, because most explanations stop too early. They call it fear of success. They call it low self-esteem. They call it self-destructive behavior. And those words aren't wrong exactly, but they sit on the surface of something that runs much deeper. Something that isn't a flaw at all. Something that, if you look at it honestly and carefully, is one of the most intelligent responses your mind has ever produced. Built at the wrong time. Running in the wrong context, but intelligent. Self-sabotage is protection. It is a survival strategy, not a mistake, not a character defect. A strategy that was constructed in a specific environment for a specific set of conditions, at a time when you had very few other options available to you. And the reason it is so difficult to stop is not because you lack willpower or awareness. It's because you're not fighting a bad habit. You're fighting something that once kept you intact. Here's what that means in practice. If you grew up in an environment where good things didn't stay, where stability was always temporary, where calm had a reliable history of arriving just before something broke, your nervous system did exactly what nervous systems are designed to do. It learned the pattern, not as a conscious thought, not as a belief you could examine and choose to revise, as a reflex. A body-level expectation that became so consistent it was indistinguishable from reality itself. And that expectation is this: smooth doesn't last. When things feel safe, something is already coming. Pay attention, brace. Now take that reflex and place it inside a relationship that is genuinely working. A career that is actually building into something real. A situation where, for once, there is no immediate threat visible on the horizon. What does the nervous system do with that? It doesn't relax, it waits, it scans. It searches the perimeter for the thing that must be coming. And when it cannot find an external threat, it begins to manufacture one from the inside. Not out of cruelty to yourself, out of familiarity. Because the body would rather live inside a known discomfort than sit exposed inside an unknown calm. Because calm, for a nervous system that learned what yours learned, doesn't register as safety. It registers as the moment before. So the argument starts, the withdrawal begins, the effort quietly disappears. And on the surface, it looks like self-destruction, like chaos, like something inexplicable. But underneath it is a logic that makes a cold and precise kind of sense. If I create the ending, I control it. If I ruin this before it can be taken from me, I stay in control of the story. I don't have to be surprised. I don't have to be the one left standing there holding something that no longer exists. I do the leaving first, and I call the timing my own. That is the logic of preemptive loss. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. The mind would rather manufacture a wound it chose than receive a wound it didn't see coming. Think about what that means in practice. It means the sabotage isn't random. It isn't chaos. It has timing. It almost always accelerates right when things become real. Right when the relationship stops being new and exciting and starts being something you could actually lose. Right when the opportunity stops being theoretical and starts requiring you to believe, consistently and without proof, that you can sustain it. The sabotage arrives at the exact moment the stakes become real, because that's when the nervous system recognizes the threat has moved. It isn't out there anymore. It's inside. It's how much this now matters. And mattering is dangerous when you learned early that the things you care about most are exactly the things that disappear. There's another layer underneath this one. Quieter, harder to catch in the act. It has to do with familiarity. Not just fear of losing something, but the specific interior discomfort of ease. If difficulty was the texture of your early life, if tension, unpredictability, and a low-grade waiting dread were the normal operating conditions of your childhood, then stability doesn't register as relief. It registers as wrong. Like a room that is too quiet after years of noise. Like waiting for a sound you can't hear yet, but feel certain is coming. And because ease feels wrong, you trust it less than you trust the chaos. The chaos is familiar. The chaos is legible. The chaos is, in the deepest and most uncomfortable sense of the word, home. And the mind will always find its way back toward home, even when home was a place that regularly hurt you. This is why telling yourself to just be grateful doesn't reach the problem. This is why deciding to do better next time doesn't reach it either. The problem isn't in your conscious thoughts, it's in what your body has been trained to recognize as normal. And normal, for you, has never felt like this. Now go one layer deeper, because there is something underneath the familiarity too. There is a form of unworthiness that doesn't speak in clear sentences. It doesn't tell you outright that you don't deserve good things. That version is too loud, too obvious, too available for therapy and self-help and every online space that promises to fix you in 6 steps. The version that actually runs the show is quieter than that. It doesn't make announcements. It doesn't interrupt your thoughts. It moves through decisions so small you barely register making them. Through the message you started typing and then deleted without sending. Through the slightly smaller effort you made when a full effort was completely possible. Through the door you quietly left open for failure while telling yourself, with complete sincerity, that you were trying your best. It operates just below the threshold of consciousness, which is exactly why it is so effective. You cannot fight what you cannot see. And this thing has learned to stay just out of sight. What it's doing, underneath all of it, is protecting you from one specific pain. The pain of building something real, something you genuinely wanted, something you let yourself believe in, and losing it anyway. Because that pain is unbearable in a way that the pain of self-sabotage is not. If you burn it down yourself, you have the explanation. The story belongs to you. You made a choice, even if it was the wrong one. The alternative, trying fully, wanting fully, believing fully, and still watching it fall apart without warning. That is the loss the system is designed to prevent at almost any cost. Even the cost of the thing itself. So it takes the thing first, quietly, in advance, before anyone sees what's really happening, including you. New habits don't change this. Deciding to be different and white-knuckling your way through the next opportunity doesn't change this either. You've already tested that version. The pattern found another door, another quieter way to accomplish what it has always accomplished. Because the programming is older and deeper than your intentions, and intentions cannot overwrite programming through force alone. What changes it is understanding, not abstract understanding, but specific, personal, uncomfortable understanding of what the original conditions actually were. The real environment, the real losses, the real moments where you opened yourself to something good and watched it disappear without warning or explanation. Your nervous system built this entire response in a real place, based on real evidence, because of things that actually happened to you. It wasn't wrong, it was accurate. The problem is it's been applying those conclusions to every new situation since, without updating the data, without checking whether the person across from you now is the same as the one who left, without asking whether this moment is actually the same as the one that broke you before. That is what needs to change, not your behavior first, your body's evidence first. The nervous system updates through experience, not insight. It needs to survive the discomfort of things going well repeatedly, long enough, without manufacturing the exit, before it begins to record something new. Before calm stops reading as warning. Before security stops feeling like a setup. That takes longer than feels reasonable. It requires tolerating a discomfort that doesn't announce itself as productive. And it requires the one thing the strategy was specifically built to avoid. The willingness to need something enough that losing it would genuinely hurt. Not discipline, not optimism, not a cleaner morning routine or a better mindset. Just the willingness to stay in the room when everything in your history is telling you the room is about to catch fire. The calm you keep burning down was never the warning sign you learned to treat it as. Sometimes it was exactly what it looked like, and it was asking you to stay.